guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Heather and this is La Casita Jardin's kitchen. And today we are going to be talking through, again, a little bit about elderberry syrup. Now, I want to say about 3 years ago, I had done a video on elderberry syrup, and that was back before I even had a camera stand, let alone a camera, and I was shooting on my cell phone. So it's not exactly the best video. The info's good, but the video quality not quite on par. But today, hopefully, I can bring you some new information and additional information that I did not have at the time because, well, we've learned a little bit more about elderberry and we have begun growing it as a result. So we are going to talk about the American elderberry variety today, and we will be making an American elderberry syrup. And this is probably the easiest elderberry syrup that you could make because you can literally put it in the pot and walk away from it. All right, so let's go on ahead and get this video started. Okay, so very, very basic needs on doing the syrup is going to be a pot or even just a bowl or a jar that you can sit back in the corner overnight and you will be fine as far as containers go. Obviously, you are going to need some American elderberry. Now, what we have here is the dried American elderberry, and there is going to be a little bit of a difference should you do either fresh or freshly frozen elderberry. When it comes to the American elderberry, and really elderberry just in general, I like to go for the lowest amount that is going to give me the medicinal use. And why do I say that? The reason I say that is because I don't want to waste the product. So I don't want to put any more in there than I absolutely need to get that perfect medicinal dose. So for dried elderberry, if you're using American, I do a 1/4 cup of the dried elderberry to every cup of water. So if you only want to make a cup of American elderberry syrup, you only need a 1/4 cup of dried elderberry. However, if you are using fresh or freshly frozen, you're going to need to use at least 1/2 of a cup, because in the drying process, what happens is all of the nutritional value becomes very concentrated in the American elderberry, as opposed to the fresh elderberry where it's still just in its original berry state. It's still very fresh. It's not any less medicinal, but in order for you to get an elderberry syrup that's going to have the taste of American elderberry, you're going to need to use that 1/2 cup as well as to get the full medicinal dose. So 1/2 cup per every cup of water. You could even go up to a cup of the freshly frozen if you absolutely want to. Like I said, I try to go with using the least amount that gives me the most benefits. You're also going to need some warm water. We've got our water boiling here. And I'm going to do, a cup here of dried elderberry. So I'll need roughly 4 cups of water. Now, at this point, it's completely and utterly up to you. If you want to just leave this as elderberry only, you can leave this as elderberry only and fully enjoy it. If you want to add cinnamon or nutmeg or clove or star anise, you can go on ahead and put that in now. It'll just be steeping overnight and infusing into the elderberry. I usually use, this is an organic true cinnamon, and I find for this amount I only really need to use a stick. And I'm also going to be using some fresh whole clove. I usually use about 5 to 6 for this amount. The whole product is going to be a little bit more potent. And I'm just going to put in a pinch of ground nutmeg. No, let's go with 2 pinches. I'm feeling the nutmeg today. All right. Now, our water doesn't necessarily have to be boiling. You can use just warm water, slightly heated water. We do not have to worry about cooking the American elderberry because it doesn't have the level of cyanide that is in the European elderberry variety. This is one of the reasons that a lot of people prefer the American elderberry, because you can literally just make it and leave it. You don't have to worry so much about the cooking process, making sure that you're doing the right amount of time to get that cyanide out. You can also eat American elderberry fresh berries, fresh. You can put them on top of your oatmeal. You can make pies out of them, crumbles. You can put them in baked goods such as scones, rolls, whatever you or your family like. And that is also a very good way to get some extra immune boosting benefits just in food consumption. All we're going to do with this now is put the lid on it and put it to the back here. And I'm just going to leave it overnight. I have a mason jar. This is a wide mouth mason jar. You don't have to have a wide mouth mason jar. Whatever container that you have that you can put a lid on in your refrigerator is perfectly fine. The syrup will last and stay good as long as it is sealed and there's nothing, no particles or anything in it, at least 30 days. I've had it last longer than the 30 days even. So I've made batches ahead when I've known that I'm going to be too busy to make things around the holiday season, things like that, family coming in, all of that jazz. All right, so the other thing that I get asked about locally from friends, family, those who have become interested in making elderberry syrup for themselves and their family, is one type of elderberry better than another? And my answer to that is no. I actually have both here. But medicinally, there really isn't a huge difference between the two. The main benefit that everybody touts between the American elderberry and the European is just because you can use it fresh. You can even make a fresh pressed juice out of it, which during the winter is a very wonderful thing. So if you have a juicer and you're into juicing, you would probably enjoy juicing fresh elderberries as opposed to making an elderberry syrup, but you will still get the same amount of medicinal benefits from the elderberry. Now, the European variety, as I have said, has a low level of cyanide in it. It actually has less cyanide in it than an apple seed contains. So you do need to be cautious and careful. You do not want to eat that fruit fresh, and you do not want to eat the dried and use the dried in anything like a scone or a biscuit or anything along those lines. You do need to cook them. So that is the main difference, is the American elderberry, you've got a wide variety of ways and means to use it, versus you have a little bit more limitation in the European variety and how you can use it. That being said, if all you can get is the European, go on ahead and get the European. I used the European long before I even looked into and researched the American elderberry. But now that we have American elderberries growing, obviously we're using a little bit more of the American elderberry, and we're hoping to expand that very soon as well. Now, flavor-wise, this is the other thing that a lot of people have spoken to me about and that I've experienced myself. The European elderberry has a very distinct flavor, whereas the American elderberry has more of a true berry flavor, what we as Americans know and enjoy in the blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. It has that very berry flavor, whereas the European variety has a little bit more of a, camera woman says that it is a bit more pungent. I think it has a little bit of a musky undertone to it. It's a little bit deeper. So when we started using the American, it was a very, very big surprise to us to see that flavor profile difference. So if you are going to be using elderberry fresh as a culinary option, just know that American elderberry is going to give you that true berry. So putting it in a pie and making like a bumbleberry pie is going to be absolutely delicious. Now, after this has sat overnight, what we will be doing, and this is optional as well, we will be adding a local raw honey in here to the elderberry syrup. You don't necessarily need to do that, but for allergies and for just general wellness, we like to try and take at least a teaspoon of local honey once a day, just to keep and calm any seasonal respiratory things. Plus, honey is really good this time of year for me because I tend to get a little bit of a dry, scratchy throat from the heater being on. So we'll be doing that. So we will see you in the morning, okay? Okay guys, so it is the next day. Afternoon, technically, because we had our new range delivered and just general DIY handyman stuff that ended up happening and general organization. So we went on ahead and we just didn't worry about the elderberry sitting here on the counter. We left it, and if you guys want to get a look at that. Alright, so now that we have this out, what we're going to do is we're going to strain this. And I have just a basic mesh, had it for years, no sense in throwing it out yet. And then I have a measuring cup here just because I find it easier to use a measuring cup to pour into my mason jar as opposed to just straining directly into the mason jar. There's just less cleanup and less mess. So we're going to go on ahead and we are going to get this ladled in here real quick. And if you have chickens, you can feed these to the chickens. I probably wouldn't feed them the clove or the cinnamon stick, but you can definitely feed them the elderberries to help keep their health up. And then you'll have the perfect zero waste. Now to this, I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to add honey. As I said earlier, this is completely optional, but we just have a local raw honey that we get from a supplier. Their honey is amazing. And I'm halfway convinced that some of their bees probably end up in our garden, so kind of a bonus. Now I'm going to eyeball this because I know what we like. So you can play around with this, and you may want more, you may want less honey. This part is completely optional for you, but I do about 2 large spoons of honey into the bottom of the mason jar. It's a good honey. Now to that, you can kind of see how much I have in here if you're wanting to try my sweetness level before you adjust for you. And you can add honey at any point. So if you've used it for a few days and you find that it's just not sweet enough for you, you can still go on ahead and add in the honey. Don't think that you can't, that this is your only opportunity. I'm just gonna get this as stirred up in here as I can. When I am using the European variety, because it's been cooked on the stove, and I strain it out while it's a little bit warmer than room temperature, I just set it to the side and let it cool down enough to be able to handle, to strain, and then to put in the mason jar. I do go on ahead and add the honey into the pot, just because the warmth of the syrup does help break down the honey and evenly distribute it. You do a lot less stirring that way, but I'm not in a huge rush, so we're gonna be fine. I'm gonna kind of pick it up here. Make sure I don't have any big clumps of it on the bottom. I've got a couple, not too bad. Mostly, of course, in the corners. That's where it always likes to congregate. Sugar, anything sweet. Now you could also, if maple syrup is something that you can get more locally in your area, you can use maple syrup in this. That would be absolutely delicious. It would change the flavor profile of it, but that wouldn't be a problem at all. You could also do something along the lines of a simple syrup if you have sucanate, or that's basically just sugar that hasn't been broken down and processed into what we commonly know as sugar. It's just the really raw form of it. And make a simple syrup, and you can add that in if you prefer. Or you can just leave it as is. Now you can date this if you want to. I'm not overly worried about it. I know when I've made this, and I know it's not going to last a month in the refrigerator for us. We're going to have this gone before the month is out. But if I'm making ahead, I do go on ahead and I try and date the top before putting it in the refrigerator. Okay, so that's really all there is to it. Now, an additional note as far as the European variety of the elderberry. This is one thing that I will say is probably the pro to using the American. If you're somebody who is new to cooking or new to just using elderberry at all, you may want to use the American elderberry just due to the fact that it's a little bit simpler. In that the cooking process for the European elderberry, if you don't cook it enough, you won't get the cyanide out. If you cook it too much, then you end up cooking out the wonderful immune boosting benefits. So there's a little bit of a balance point. What you're looking for, if you have the European variety and you're wanting to go ahead and make that, and that's all that you have on hand right now, what you need to look for in your pot is you do not want a low simmer. So what I mean by that is instead of seeing on top a simmer all over, you don't necessarily want that. That's going to be a little bit too much long term. So what you want is you just want a few active bubbles consistently coming up all throughout your pot that you're using for about 25 minutes. You don't want a good gentle simmer going on. You don't want to see any real bubbles or anything developing on top, because that's just a bit too hot and a bit too much, and you can destroy the medicinal benefits of the European. So you still can go on ahead and use that if that's all you've got and you're a beginner. Just remember, you do in this instance probably need to watch your pot for boiling. So it might be a good time just to make a cup of tea and stand there with a spoon and just be nice and calm and relaxed and just enjoy some time in your kitchen chilling, away from everything else and all of the distractions. That would be a good way to do a 25-minute calm down. All right, if you guys have any questions about anything in this video, go on ahead and pop a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Guys, as always, keep it simple, natural, and essential. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Subscribe.